OG Loc in the place.
OG Loc is one of the most annoying characters in San Andreas. But what have I told you? His story was kind of sad. Whilst researching his backstory for this video, I started to notice a trend suggesting that he lives a lonely life where most people just ridicule him. Hell, it's especially noticeable in the first mission where you take out the Vargo gang member for him. It's pretty sad how little support his friends actually show for him. So why is the story of Jeffrey Cross kind of sad? It all started when a boy named Jeffrey was born in Grove Street. He hung around with Smoke, Ryder and the Johnson family, but despite being friends, they all kinda took the hand out of him. You see, OG Loc is quite small and named Jeffrey, which is probably the worst traits to have in the ghetto, so as you can imagine, the other kids bullied him. Growing up in the Grove, he was described as lacking the physical capability to join the gang. Sweet even advised him to leave the ghetto and attend college.
Jeffrey, go to college, man.
But Jeffrey refused and was set on becoming a rapper. So despite his friends teasing him and telling him to get out of the ghetto, Jeffrey changed his name to OG Loc and pursued his rap career. He chose the name OG Loc as he thought it sounded a little bit more gangster than Jeffrey. Which, I mean, yeah, he's not wrong, but OG Loc is a little bit on the nose. He hoped that his name would give him some respect and separate him from little Jeffrey that everyone made fun of. But unfortunately for Loc, this was not the case. Later in life, Jeffrey would be arrested and put in jail. What for? You might think some hardcore gangster shit, but it was actually just for traffic violations and some petty crime. After serving some time in prison, Loc would eventually get out, and this is when we first meet him in San Andreas. CJ, Sweet, and Smoke would pick him up for the precinct, and straight away the guys would laugh at him for being thrown in jail for traffic violations. But in an attempt to gain some respect from his fellow gang members, Loc tells them that he wants to take out a guy who he was rooming with in prison. The guy is a part of the rival gang, the Vargos, and Loc claims he stole his rhyme book while in prison. So CJ decides to help him out, and the pair chase him down through Los Santos. But while chasing the guy, he drops hints about having sex with Loc in prison, and it doesn't exactly sound consensual. And how do you think one of his closest friends would respond after hearing this? Would he be supportive? Would he help him? No, he turns it into a joke about Loc being gay, instead of offering him support.
Was you lonely, Loc?
Which is pretty shitty in my opinion. Loc then heads down to carry out his parole, working for Burger Shot. Whilst at work, he decides to practice his new music, and this lovely gentleman in the bathroom gives him some feedback.
Anybody in the world could do.
That
It's
shit
like
sucks. Damn.
After this, Loc decides he needs to get better. So what does Loc do? Does he start to practice more? Does he get help? Does he work on his vocals, lyrics and flow? No, him and CJ decide to steal another rapper's music. To do this, CJ undertakes a few tasks. First, he sneaks into Mad Dog's mansion and steals his rhyme book. Then he takes out Mad Dog's manager. And finally, he steals a sound system for Loc. With all this new equipment, Loc was able to launch his first album. To celebrate, he decides to have an album party in Grove Street. But as you can imagine, the gang didn't like his music too much. However, after this, CJ is ran out of the town by the crash unit, and Sweet is thrown in jail. Loc eventually signs a deal with Big Smoke using his drug money. And surprisingly, despite the local feedback earlier of his music being shit, Loc's album actually does well, and this allows Loc to finally become a commercially successful rapper and appear on TV and radio. But shortly after, CJ would return to San Andreas, and he would ruin Loc's career and steal back Mad Dog's rhyme book, which is kind of a dick move in CJ's part. Okay, hear me out. CJ was the one who snuck into Mad Dog's mansion, killed his guards, stole his rhyme book and killed his manager. And this all ultimately drove Mad Dog to abusing drugs and attempting suicide. But when CJ saved Mad Dog's life, he offers him the position as his manager. But CJ never admits to any of the crimes he committed against him, and instead blames Loc and then destroys Loc's careers to help Mad Dog's. And in the process, this all makes CJ richer and more successful. Yes, granted, OG Loc signed with Big Smoke after CJ was kicked out of the city, but there's nothing to suggest that Jeffrey was involved and even wanted anything to do with the gang wars or drug running. He always was just more interested in becoming a rapper. I couldn't find anything to suggest that OG Loc was involved in getting rid of Sweet and CJ, and Loc even says in their final mission that he thought him and CJ were still friends. But to make it worse, in the final mission, Loc doesn't even sell CJ out to Mad Dog by telling him what he did. So I think it was pretty selfish of CJ to play both sides when it helped him the most. Jeffrey Cross is a man who was ridiculed by his friends growing up. He was a part of a friend group who offered him no support in a time of need, and even one used him as an scapegoat. Is he perfect? No, not at all. He was kind of annoying, bad at rapping, he partook in petty crimes, he stole music, he worked with a crack dealer. Wait, where am I going with this? But he was a guy who was ridiculed his whole life, and the only person I seen genuinely support him was Sweet in the very beginning, telling him to go to college and not to waste his life in the Grove. And I think that's kind of sad. Thanks for watching, and check out Rockstar's biggest mistake on screen now.